Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
With just 7 rounds remaining in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, every round now finds a heightened sense of importance. We move over to the Sunto district of Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan, for the circuit at the base of Mount Fuji. The Fuji Speedway, which has only hosted 4 Formula One races in its past, but 4 absolutely incredible races to get the best out of what is needed from drivers. This is a challenge that these drivers are going to absolutely love or hate, depending on where they are. A championship that still is in the balance with Gronk versus Jacob Reed, but the scales very heavily tipped. My name's Jake Sperry, Caitlin Penny along with me for the ride here today as we take a little bit of a gander around this fantastic circuit here in Fuji. Caitlin, this is a wonderful track and is not run as much as maybe some people would admire. This is the official Toyota track out there in the world, and one which pretty much tests a wide characteristics of car control.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jake. We're about to take a look at the circuit on the map you're seeing on your screen. Fuji Speedway there, right in the center of the central island of Japan. Plenty of history here, not just in Formula One, where it saw the likes of James Hunt winning the World Championship in 1976, and that tense fight between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa in 2008 that saw Hamilton going for a spin. But you see in the track layout that it is a fantastic place to go racing wherever you are, whenever you are in the championship. You've got that ridiculously long start-finish straight, plenty of slipstreaming there. There's going to be DRS in effect today as well. There's a second DRS zone between turns 2 and 3 there, and turn 3 in its own right should be almost flat out in these cars, if it is not flat out, simply through the amount of downforce that these guys will be running. We've got chicanes, we've got hills, we've got changes in elevation and direction. The cars turn on a dime. They are fantastic, almost animal-like performance as they head through that final sector there with their high downforce. And having driven this circuit plenty of times, I can tell you that it is a fantastic place to go racing.
And we're going to be seeing that over the course of 67 laps worth of racing today. Daiichi, of course, the TGR corner is going to be one place to keep an eye out on overtakes. The other place to keep a lookout for is the Dunlop corner, turn 10. The very tight chicane version that we run here today is going to provide a heavy braking zone and a lot of opportunity to find overtakes out there over the course of this race. Let's talk championships, though, because this is what we're all here for. Aragon, last time out, meant that it was a dead rubber, so to speak. No points gained for Jacob Reed, no points gained for Jordan Gronkowski. The gap remains 78 with 7 rounds to go. Eduardo Radice pretty close there in third after joining up last time out with a chance of victory. Kamaya's victory leapfrogs him up into P5, with the likes, of course, of Connor Pooler not there last time out in 8th, Anthony Cat 9th, and Jorge Martinez, who, of course, hasn't raced since about round 4 of the championship, still holding on to 10th, but 2 points. The difference between himself and Paul O'Regan as things stands right now. SimSpeed Championship all done and dusted and aside for the moment, Caitlin. Let's talk iRacing Championship.
Yeah, so this involves all of the different splits, not just the top split that we broadcast, although as you can see, the top split means more, which is why we have more top split drivers. Jacob Reed comfortably leading that because he has been on a real run of form. If you ignore last time out where he crashed out of the race, making a very unusual, uncharacteristic error, he, of course, won 7 races in a row before that, 8 races in a row, I think. So he's absolutely dominating both sets of standings. But Eduardo Radice has been on a resurgence. He is up to 2nd in the championship, despite having missed several rounds. Jordan Gronkowski also failed to score points in the last race. And you also see the likes of Anthony Catt and Walter Lux. And Jake, you were saying to me just before this broadcast that Anthony Catt would probably be even higher in the championship, but unfortunately has had about 7 failures to finish over the course of the year, which shows you that consistency really is key as well as just pure dominance.
It absolutely is. It's the only long season championship, so you've got to keep that in mind. 67 laps here today. 2 tyre compounds must be used of soft, medium and hard. And of course, the drag reduction system is available after lap 3 for these drivers, so that will be their overtaking aid, which will allow them the chance to gain quite a bit in a straight line to try and make the move out there happen. So that's in the back pocket. Everybody is looking for what they possibly can out there over the course of their runs, and I think we're going to get a chance to see what this starting grid looks like here today from Fuji. Championship leader and reigning champ on pole position, Jacob Reed, houses himself there with Mario Bodlosh alongside for company. It is then on row 2, Jordan Gronkowski, who has his work cut out with Walter Lux starting off in 4th position, where he has been so long this season. Nice to see Alex Hagland here for the first time. He starts in 5th with George van Rensburg in 6th position. It is then Anthony Catt who goes up in 7th with Edward Apari-Ari in P8. Connor Pooler starts this one from 9th position. He had troubles with energy deployment on the back end of his second lap, which put him down in that 9th place. Victor Awad will round out the top 10 with Florian Kameyer, the winner last time out, back down to grace then for him in 11th with Jason Green in 12th position. It is then Paul O'Regan and Dan Piazza on row number 7. And row 8, here's a shock for you right now. Second lap not working for Eduardo Radice. You've got Kent Nielsen 15th. Radice will have to start from 16th with Frankie Francica in 17th position in the number 18 car and Lyle Pinar in 18th position in the number 17 car. So that's definitely not confusing down at the back of the field. It's the longest straight that we've got this season, and the tyre life where you can see everyone expecting to run long on the tyres here today. So we're expecting soft medium strategies to be in play. Overcast conditions as well will help. Just the 2 drivers starting on the soft compound tyres, it seems, at the moment, and that is Jordan Gronkowski and Anthony Catt, who will be the 2 looking for that chance to build a gap early here in today's race. We are looking forward to what is going to be some amazing sim racing action brought to you with the iRacing Grand Prix Tour and us on SimSpeed TV. This is where Jacob Reed needs to be at his best. Engine notes then will rise. Green flag in the air, and we're underway. And Dale Jacob Reed doesn't go off at the start, and immediately Bodlosh flies by. So do does 3, 4, maybe even 5 cars. A stellar start then off of this one from Anthony Catt as well. Diving through, troubles off the start, but Mario Bodlosh has got himself clear. Lux up to 2nd, and Gronk still finds himself in 3rd. Over to the Coca-Cola corner they go, side by side between Catt and Jacob Reed, and Reed has to back out of it. Watch out, here comes Van Rensburg.
Yeah, very unusual start there for Jacob Reed, as he does not get away well at all. Great stuff from Mario Bodlosh, the 3rd seeded driver, going from the 2nd place on the grid. Very nearly contact there between Anthony Catt and George van Rensburg as they fly through the right-hander. Now we get heavy braking zone down into the chicane. This is definitely an overtaking opportunity if you can get it right. And look for Florian Kameyer there trying to make his way through as he struggles on the start and through the qualifying session. Now we go up the hill and we're about to head towards the start-finish straight, which later on will be so important when DRS is active.
Oh, we got one car in the barriers then, and back to the pits. That's Victor Awad in the number 14 car, who's found the barriers, and that's coming up the hill then after the chicane. So has he tangled with someone, or has he just had a moment? I think He hasn't made any contact with anyone, as now, watch out in this front stretch. No DRS for Jordan Gronkowski. This is pure battery and tyre down the inside of Volta Lux, and that puts him P2.
And this is very important for Jordan Gronkowski. Being on those soft tyres, his aim will be to get to the front straight away so that he can control the strategy of this race. There's Kent Nielsen running in 11th, returning after a race away. Of course, the other driver on soft tyres is Anthony Cat. He is up into 4th position and actually started he started in about 7th position, so he's made up a few places at the start, as you would expect from him. And I wrongly said he was fighting with Van Rensburg on the first lap. That's because my timing screen, unfortunately, had not updated itself, so I was looking at the wrong car. But it's back to normal now, and we're looking at a replay. Now, is this what took out Victor Awad? Because
Yes.
he is the new car who dropped to the back of the grid, and there was contact, and around he went and into the wall.
I don't think there was at all there. That was just him getting on the power, having a tank slapper as he was going through the motions, not having the downforce there at that section of road to really help him out. And as such, into the barriers in a really unique place. Now, dropping down the order, that's Dan Piazza. That's a huge incident there for Dan Piazza. So that's him out of the race then. So troubles for Dan. It looks like Jason Green got himself a little bit caught up in all of that. So a massive amount of drama. It was Ken Nielsen running wide as Gronk sets the fast lap, and coming out then of the Toyota GR section, it was a case of Nielsen tapping him around and getting a massive hit, and you can see him diving into the pits with damage right now. He has got himself, of course, a change of front wing desperately needed.
Yeah, it's always a shame when the innocent victim comes off worse, but Kent Nielsen has also lost a front wing as a result of that, so he's come back into the pits. Bit of a shame then. 15 cars remain unhindered in these early stages. We've got 16 remaining in total, with the exceptions of Dan Piazza and Victor Awad, who retired early on. Looks to have been a change between Jason Green and Lyle Pienaar over 14th position. But up in front, we're heading towards the start-finish straight again, which would be the first time that DRS is used. And here's a replay of what happened between Kent Nielsen and Dan Piazza.
Well, you can see Ken Nielsen runs wide. It's off camber there at the GR corner, and there is the hit, and it's clumsy at best as they went through. Piazza with enough damage has to hit the barriers. Jason Green just about steps out of the way, but watch out then for the race lead, and watch out for third as well, because there goes Anthony Cat there in the background, sliding on through on Volta Lux. That puts him up into P3, and he'll give chase to Jordan Gronkowski in second. Bodlosh, your race leader at the moment, and Mario Bodlosh only has a 9th and a 6th place to his back pocket, but if he can manage to pull together a result like this and find a way, next year he might be a driver who challenges for the title out there, as Jacob Reed shadows these drivers. We'll take a look at his start here and just listen in to see what goes on here.
Yeah, sorry, I've just noticed he's made up a move.
Well, he just dumps it pretty much. Goes through a heavy amount of wheel spin there, Caitlin.
Yeah, he does. Sorry for interrupting that. He was just overtaking Walter Lux as we were speaking, so he's up into 4th position now. And Anthony Cat, of course, up into 3rd on those soft tyres. But yes, that does keep the race very interesting, because Reed is on the back foot. When he has the front foot, he tends to be relatively unstoppable. And talking of unstoppable, I think we are about to see a move for the lead, because Gronkowski will get the DRS. You'll see the flap open. There it goes. We're on the long start-finish straight. He's got plenty of time to slipstream his way up to the back of Mario Bodlos's car and get through. But he's a little way back. He does now go to the inside, go to the lead, and Jordan Gronkowski makes it stick.
Well, he only had 8 kilometers an hour in a straight line with the DRS, which indicates that he's got a bit of downforce sat there for the middle sector. You saw that as he was running through the Panasonic corner, turn 16 out here on this layout of the Fuji Speedway. He's got a car built for being out there in front, and that's what he was planning on doing, and immediately he's almost pulled a second already away from Mario Bodlosh in this race. He's looking to build a margin and do so pronto.
Indeed. Sorry, yeah, we're just being told by Jay, thank you Jay Kennedy, the broadcast director, showing us that there's a difference in wings between Jordan Gronkowski and Mario Bodlos. You can see that extra bevel on Jordan Gronkowski's. and that's just a difference in downforce packages. So one of the two will have slightly more downforce to aid them in the corners. The other one will be slightly more streamlined to help in a straight line and aid with overtaking. I think it's Bodlosh's that was the less high downforce, if I'm not very much mistaken.
Well, that's correct, but watch out in the front stretch. Volta Lux hoping to try and attack, but Jacob Reed's got a car that pretty much says, I'm not going to be stopped here in a straight line by comparison, chasing up to Anthony Cat and not getting there. Gronk, fastest lap with an 18.8 and gets a SimSpeed Championship bonus point in the back pocket if he can hold that to the end of the race, and that's going to be rather crucial to keep in mind. Those 1 points here and those 1 points there certainly add up in the context of the season. Now, when you talk about Jacob Reed here, down in 4th position, scoring 12 championship points where he stands at this point in time, it's a 14-point swing were it to end like this right now, Caitlin, and we're talking about 78 points with 7 rounds to go. That is needing to chase down roughly 11 to 12 points around, which Gronk, currently at this pace, needs Jacob Reed to have these sorts of results all season long to the end of the season.
Yeah, but even if Jacob Reed finishes in 4th position, he's still got a relatively comfortable lead in the championship. He's in a similar place to the likes of Max Verstappen in the real world of Formula One, where he's built up that string of wins early on in the championship, and as the season goes along, he's kind of been running on those. Admittedly, it has only been one race since his winning streak came to an end. But even if he did finish 4th place to the end of the season, that would be good enough for him to win the championship. So he just needs to make sure he doesn't make any big errors from now. And I think there was just an overtake. There's Florian Kammer in 8th position. Eduardo Radice is now into the top 10, having had a terrible qualifying session and very uncharacteristic for Eduardo. But you can see that in terms of the most positions gained, Eduardo is right up there, having got himself up into the top 10.
Yeah, that puts him +6 then on the day, from 16th over to 10th, and a little bit of time then to catch Connor Pooler in 9th position in front. So he's got some work to do to chase down that group right now, which are running in the low 120s. This group right now with Anthony Cat are in the 119.7s and 8 at this moment, so they're definitely finding a bit of pace out there by comparison, to the tune of about half a second. And look at how it bottlenecked up through. Volta Lux is so quick through this section. I think he's just got to throw one up the inside when they reach Panasonic corner, but it's very difficult to get the power down coming out of that section, especially with the amount of dirty air that goes up through the gears as you try and put that power to use. Volta Lux has got a lot that he's got in the back pocket that he's got to really think about here, and every time he's in a straight line, he's thinking, do I have a chance? Now, no DRS on the straight there for Jacob Reed, which means Lux has a half look to the inside. He can't quite get what he wants, and this is turning into an important game of cat and mouse here on lap 8 of 67.
Yeah, and Kamai got past for... Oh, and we're going to see a replay here. Who we're on board with, sorry? Anthony Cat. Okay, so this is a replay of Cat's start. He was, of course, the second driver on the soft tyres, which would have helped him get away. And you can see the power being put down as he carves his way through the field. He was up to 4th position pretty much immediately. Had a look at 2nd around the outside of Gronkowski and Bodlos, on Lux rather, but was rather held out to dry. Meanwhile, Florian Kammer just got past Alex Hagland for 7th position. Hagland, who I was very impressed by in qualifying, going right up there to the front of the field. I think he was in 5th position after all of that. Has now dropped down to 8th, but just needs to keep his head and run the rest of the way. And pretty nice looking car as well. Nice deep purple and standout yellow. And he's just ahead of Connor Pooler, who returns to this series after 1 round away, Jake.
Yeah, it certainly does. Of course, Tobias Saal jumped in, who's normally Connor Pooler's spotter and is so again here today. So it's a case for Connor Pooler as he looks to try and get his rhythm sorted in racing. He is trying to get closer to that guy there who's going to jump straight back down the inside again. Alex Hagland getting the pass on Florian Kammer with his maiden win last time out. Kammer, just one of 5 drivers this season to pick up a victory. Of course, Jacob Reed is one of them, Jordan Gronkowski is another, and then you look around at the other 2 drivers who have picked up a victory this season. At the opener, Jorge Martinez, and then, of course, you've got to look out to Sebring, where Darren Parker picked up a victory. So there is certainly a lot out there riding on picking up a victory in this series. A lot different to last season, where it was a case of the first 8 races had 8 different race winners, Caitlin.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago now, doesn't it, with the likes of Darren Parker picking up victories. Unfortunately, Darren Parker not here today, so not able to challenge for this one. But we do have a good few drivers in contention. Remember, even though Mario Bodlos was overtaken by Gronkowski in the early stages, he's still the top driver to have started on medium tyres, which puts him at the head of his own little pack. And if that turns out to be the right strategy, then he could still end up winning this race, as could the likes of potentially even Anthony Katz, but he needs to get a move on since Gronkowski is getting away. And you can never count out Jacob Reed, the dominant driver in the championship, and they're nearly going to go 3 wide down the straight, with George van Rensburg pulling to the inside as he goes past Walter Lutz, and that was Kent Nielsen that they were putting a lap down there. Nielsen having returned to the track after knocking off his front wing in the early stages, and created a little bit of a headache for the passing drivers, but luckily that was on the straight, so he was able to get out of the way cleanly.
George van Rensburg committed to going around Ken Nielsen, thinking he was going to stay in line. Nielsen moved over, of course, trying to stay out of the way, so George van Rensburg, using the wide front stretch here at Fuji Speedway, was able to make that happen. This is a circuit that hosted a lot of great action in the Tokyo Olympics. The cycling, road race and time trials pretty much found their finishes here. We'll take a look then on the SimSpeed replay. This is what happened to George van Rensburg, and this is very simple. You can see moves over, and he has to make a massive move to the right hand side. He was all the way over on the pit exit trying to get that done. No harm, no foul, but that was definitely a cause for concern at this phase of the race. Gaps starting to form here right now. I would say it's 2nd through 6th, which are all there together. Gronk now 4.3 seconds adrift at the front of this field. And then you've got the next group, which is currently being housed with Kammeyer and Hagland and Connor Pooler, who are all there trying to get there. And Eduardo Radice running 99s at the moment and is closing down on that group at half a second a lap. He should be there in the next 2 to 3, Caitlin.
Yeah, just quickly, did you see how quickly Kent Nielsen pulled over to the right on the straight there? He wanted to be much clearer with his intentions that time around. Because what we just saw, it looked like a late defensive manoeuvre, but of course he wasn't defending at all. He was trying to get out of the way, which you don't necessarily have to do, but he decided to do so anyway, just to avoid getting in the way of the drivers fighting for positions. But this time around he moved out the way quicker, just so that no one would try to slipstream him and end up getting caught out. Little move in the background, I think I saw Connor Pooler, attacking Alex Hagland over 8th position. So these two are the drivers being caught by Eduardo Radice, and this will help Radice actually, because the more they fight each other, the quicker Radice can catch up. Now this next corner, you don't always want to make a move into here, because if you do, your opponent will get a much better run onto the straight, and they'll get the full dose of your slipstream. And I've been in races before where I've overtaken a driver into that final corner, and then even without DRS, they've managed to slide straight through, and Connor Pooler uses that DRS and uses the deployment and goes through into 8th position.
Yeah, comfy pass on Alex Hagland. We expect a lot of those over to the TGR corner. It's one where you often find that you've got such a long straight that some drivers don't necessarily know what they do when they get there. So you've got to be really switched on for what that corner is and what it means to those drivers as they attack. And with Eduardo Radice now on the back of these two, he's looking to pick them off one at a time, using up that medium tyre to a strategy. And we might even see a case here today, Caitlin, in terms of that strategy game of drivers trying to engineer a reverse strategy on the softs. Instead of splitting it 50-50, the medium tyre out there, basically because it can run so long, and we know the soft can run 30 to 35 laps, it's just offering that ability to run it 30 to 35 laps.
Yeah, so you can see there 30 to 35 laps is the projected tyre life on the soft. We always see drivers trying to push the tyres a little bit longer than that. Pretty much every race we've seen this season, they've gone longer. Now, because of course you have to use 2 different tyre compounds, that means that the drivers who started on softs will have to use those mediums.
Traffic green.
Yes, I'm sorry, just a move there. Jacob Reed is up into 3rd place past Anthony Cat. So Cat, despite being on the soft tyres, dropping back. Connor Paula just past Florian Kammerer for 7th place as well. But just to quickly finish my point, yeah, it'll be an easy one-stop today. And I think that reverse engineering is exactly the right word when it comes to this strategy, because you want to use the softs to their full advantage in the late stages without using them for so long that they end up going off and hitting the cliff.
Well, the key here is no DRS for Anthony Cat. He'd lost the back of Mario Bodlosh to the tune of 1.3 seconds. And, well, Jacob Reed's not going to take no for an answer. He was going to fly on through and gain that place back again, finally getting rid of Anthony Cat when he so desperately needed to. And Cat will be looking backwards in the mirrors rather than looking forwards, because Volta Lux will be certainly hoping that he doesn't lose the back of the championship leader and the reigning champion if he wants to try and house himself on the podium here today at the Fuji Speedway. He needs a little bit of help to go and make that pass, but Anthony Cat, of course, in a straight line, I think is going to be a little bit quicker than what Volta Lux has to offer, and this is what we call the slipstream train as they ride on through. Everyone with slipstream and DRS on everyone else makes it very difficult to find the pass. Defensive line half taken by Anthony Cat into turn 1. No dice then from Volta Lux, who tries to pick it apart driving down the hill, hopefully trying to find something at the very tough to make a move Coca-Cola corner turn 3, but he's not going to get that chance.
And Florian Kammerer repassed Connor Paula, but Paula's got him back into the braking zone there. So you can see the kind of back and forth action that the DRS causes down the straight. And as well as that, Hagland and O'Regan were fighting behind him. They're a little way back, of course, separated by the likes of Eduardo Radice, or just Eduardo Radice separates the two of them. You can see them back there. We're watching Florian Kammerer, the winner of the last Grand Prix, who unfortunately has not been quite as competitive just yet today, but still making up those places. And if he can do that at Aragon, then he can definitely do that at other rounds of the championship that might suit him track-wise and situationally. And right now, Eduardo Radice, you've got to say, is another one of the disappointments of the race, because even though he's trying his best, and even though he's making up the places, his qualifying performance really did put him out of position. But here we go, we're looking at Walter Lutz once again, slipstreaming up to Anthony Cat, who once again throws a defensive line, knows that he has to. The difficulty there is that he will lose the slipstream from Jacob Reed as soon as he takes that defensive line. And now, Radice gets Kammerer.
Yep, down the inside, so Florian Kammerer has to let Eduardo Radice through. That puts him up into P8. I doubt that it's the fact that Cat's got to defend here against Volta Lux. It's more the fact that Lux has a car that cannot find the pass on the front stretch, and that's going to be what's frustrating him at this moment in time. So the worry is very much one of alertness at this point, as we see Radice, who's third in the championship, who has been on the podium so many times, has had so many chances to pick up victories, but has yet to find a way to break the duck. Now looking to go through, big lock-up by Kammerer down into the Dunlop corner, and that could have very easily have been him into the back of the car in front, Eduardo Radice. He holds his station with Alex Hagland, happy to wait on this very long uphill drag, and this is some of the toughest road that you have to drive, because every corner feels like an eternity.
Yeah, you saw Kammerer with a big twitch there. That was a rear brake lockup. The way you the way you fight against that is by reprogramming your brake bias. You can update that on the fly. Now look at Anthony Cat coming back through on Jacob Reed on the inside. Brakes early though. Reed was very late on the brakes and will get the drive on the exit of the corner. There's definitely grip out there to be used, and Reed can use absolutely all of it, knows exactly where to find it. Then we head up through that left-hander at Coca-Cola curve and into the long right-hander. This corner can be a bit of a tyre killer. And now we look at Eduardo Radice, who was just fighting with Connor Paula and I believe made a move.
Well, fight's one word. I think it was pretty cut and dry, the statement there. Straight on through with superior top speed, getting it done. And then Alex Hagland in the background, getting that pass down the inside. Kammerer held it around that outside, though, of the TGR corner, inside line, heading over to turn number 3. And it's crucial to note that you've got that extra bit of DRS between turn 2 and turn 3, so you can always fight that back. Lux, like a rash, over the back of Anthony Cat here, trying to find any which angle to go and make this move. And a little bit of rear troubles there for Jacob Reed. Opens up the door, opens up the opportunity here for Anthony Cat, who moves immediately over to the right-hand side and set the phasers to pass. He easily gets it done.
Not an easy thing to pass Jacob Reed any time, but that's about the easiest move you'll get on him, down a long straight like that. And again, very important for Anthony Cat, who is losing a lot of time overall to the likes of Jordan Gronkowski, who started on the same compound of soft tyres as him. Now we head into that section I was just talking about, the slightly tyre killer right-hander there. And you can see Walter Lux throwing some attacking lines there, taking a little bit of a wider line than Jacob Reed. That's to maximise the airflow over his wings. If you run directly behind another car, you get all of the turbulent air. The car doesn't like it much. And he eventually manages to turn into the corner. Oh, a little bit too much curb taken by Reed there. He won't be quite as quick out of the chicane as Anthony Cat is there. Just got a little bit unsettled and didn't get the drive, and Walter Lutz will be sizing him up.
Well, it's been a very long pit stop for Kent Nielsen down there, over 100 seconds so far, so I think he's just parked the car and said there's nothing for me in this race, being 2 laps down. So I think Kent Nielsen is going to confirm himself as out then here in this race at Fuji Speedway in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Lap 18 of 67 starts with Jordan Gronkowski, your race leader, out there by 6.8 seconds over Mario Bodlosh. He'll be classified as 7 seconds over the line. Anthony Cat finding himself in third. Now this is where it gets interesting with Anthony Cat, more so than Jordan Gronkowski. We know that Cat's got to come in and make a stop on those soft tyres before everyone else around dives in and makes that stop. The question is going to be, how much time does he have and who does he come out with? Because it's about a 37-second lane transit time. It's one of the longest pit lanes we'll have this season. We see Kamaya now attack Connor Pooler and get it done quite nicely here. You can see he tries to make that look in towards turn one, thinking about it. I think Pooler locks himself up a little bit, scares himself with Radice in front, and that is a comfy pass if ever I saw one.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't have been an opportunity, but it looked as if, who was that? Florian Kamai. Oh, side by side with Alex Hagland. It looks as if Connor Pooler, slightly misjudged the back of Eduardo Radice's car and ended up running wide to avoid him. Obviously better than getting a face full of gearbox, but even so, he's ended up dropping a place as a result of that. Now we're seeing a replay of the Alex Hagland move, and he goes to the outside into the chicane and turns in. No contact, actually, not even wheel to wheel, and gets it done up the inside. That's a good switchback maneuver, but they're side by side once again, and that will feel really quite frustrating, seeing the driver you've just passed go flying straight back past you again with a much less interesting overtake, but that's what DRS straights do, and Connor Pooler is back into 9th position ahead of Alex Hagland.
Look, they don't ask you how, they ask you how many, and it's a case of how many positions can you gain for Connor Pooler going up then into and holding that 9th position. He has stayed steady at 0. Alex Hagland at -5 for today's running, 5th in qualifying, down to 10th so far in the race. It's been a tough one out there. Now, I am just keeping an eye out here on the tyres and who's doing what, because about half a second's been taken off in the opening 2 sectors by Bodlosh to Gronkowski, but Gronk pulls it all back again in the final sector, and that's where he builds that margin up once more. Once more, you see Walter Lutz shadowing Jacob Reed, and what he really wants out of this situation, Caitlin, would you agree with me, is for Anthony Cat to go a second down the road. So there is an opportunity right now for Walter Lutz to go and make that pass. You can really see the difference between your 2 title contenders. Half a second, then 0.2 of a second on the next lap, and crossing the line on lap 19, he was ever so slightly, just marginally quicker.
Yeah, you're right. He could do with not being in a chain here. We've seen overtakes happening as soon as drivers break away from that chain. But for Reed, Anthony Cat is a little bit of a safety net at this point in time. They're not on the same strategy, but they are on the same bit of road and sharing the same kind of air flow as well. So Anthony Cat, as long as he's there, will be giving Jacob Reed that DRS. Okay, 20 laps completed in the 67-lap race. Gronkowski continues to lead by 7 seconds now from Mario Bodlos. We really haven't mentioned Jordan Gronkowski since he's been getting away so nicely. And then you're watching the fight for third between Cat, Reed and Lux. And basically every position between 7th and 11th has been swapping around for the last 10 laps and will probably continue to do so.
What's been impressive here is Anthony Cat's pace, because he's caught back up on his 20-lap old soft tyres here to Mario Bodlos for position. So Bodlos is now being reeled in. It's very much a part now of this race, which is for second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. Just falling off the back is George van Rensburg now at 1.7 seconds. So it looks like he's struggling to keep up the momentum as the South African, and he's being distanced and gapped at this point. Cat closes right back up then to Mario Bodlos for the time being, but it's going to be a hold at the moment for the Austrian right now, as there are 2 Austrians in this group, 2nd and 5th. And here's another look from Alex Hagland, trying to get this pass done around the outside this time. He tries at the TGR corner, and he can't get it done here as Conor Pula holds steady.
So that's for 9th and 10th. Pula is 9th, Hagland is 10th. On the top screen you can see Cat, well, chasing Bodlos now, so Bodlos is dropping back towards them. And I really think that he's lost a bit of time somewhere, because he was clear of them earlier on. Anthony Cat is 3rd, Jacob Reed and Walter Lux are following them very closely. And you can see the different colours on the tyres, on the rings at the side. And that shows you that Anthony Cat is on a softer tyre compound, which would have given him the advantage at the start of the race, but will start to lose its advantage as the stint goes on. He's doing a good job to hold on at this point, since the tyres probably only have about 10 laps to go at maximum. Now we're on the DRS straight once again, and you'll see, I think Walter Lux was the closest to Reed on that lap. And Owen Cat is definitely gaining on Bodlos. This will be for 2nd, and he'll make it stick, I'm sure of it. Goes to the inside. Anthony Cat finally gets up to 2nd position, but he's overshot it. Bodlos comes back to his inside. Cat gets the drive on the outside. He'll keep that just about.
Oh, just there, and look at this. Jacob Reed thought about diving down the inside. You've got a championship to think about, buddy, and you can't afford to lose your front wing on the rear of Mario Bodlos. So he backs out of it, doesn't decide to go for the move, but Mario Bodlos then falls back into 3rd. And I wonder if he's having tyre troubles here at this stage on lap 22, whether it's just not playing out the way that he is hoping at this stage. Maybe he's a bit aggressive on that tyre life. Jacob Reed, as late as you like, down the inside, door leaving open, and he slows him up. He stands him to a crawl. Mario Bodlos is struggling.
He is indeed. He's dropped way back now, out of the podium places, having been there the whole time. So Jacob Reed is now the top driver on medium tyres, which is very important in this race. Yes, he's not leading it, but later on he could well be, depending on how the rest of the race goes. Down the start-finish straight, let's see if Bodlos loses another place, or if he can hold on to this one from Walter Lutz. And while we're watching that, we see a replay of Jacob Reed going through, making the most of Bodlos being put off his rhythm and taking that 3rd position for the first time since he dropped back on the first lap.
Well, it was very much a case of stand and deliver in that sort of sense, and really it's about what these drivers can do over that lap. Mario Bodlos, a 121.8. Compare that to Radice, who's on 120.0 out there on that last lap. Now you're seeing Paul O'Regan getting involved. He now jumps into the top 10 for 1 championship point, and he'll move top 10 of the SimSpeed Championship if he can move up to 9th position, or in fact he needs 8th because he's not got the tiebreak against Jorge Martinez. So if he can get to 8th place here, Paul O'Regan is going to be on for some big points to move inside the top 10, as now Bodlos looks around, and it is Walter Lux who is there behind, who has been Mr. 4th place this season.
Yeah, he has indeed run on a real string of 4th place finishes. I remember we were talking about he couldn't quite get to the podium no matter how hard he tried, and then broke his duck at Spa-Francorchamps, and running in 5th position now, very close to his regular running position. He's on the back of Mario Bodlos. They'll both open the DRS down the start-finish straight this time around, as we're just over a 1/3 of the way into the race. Car number 5 in 5th position, but he's about to change that and goes to the inside of Mario Bodlos now, and that will be a relatively straightforward one, providing he gets his braking right, which he does.
Yep, so comfy pass then, and Mario Bodlosh is falling backwards at this stage. George Van Rensburg will feel like he's got a chance, and there goes Paul O'Regan now up into 9th, and Alex Hagland there in 10th. So Connor Pooler finding himself then on the outside looking in of SimSpeed points as they scrap for the minor positions then in this race through Coca-Cola, and this 100 right, which comes up next. Is it 100 or 300? Let's look at the map. It's the 100 right. The 300 right is the second corner out there. So out of the Advan corner, which is that left, which is the hairpin. This is 300 right, descending down the hill, and very much looking at, okay, where's my place to go and try and make it? Because you look around this circuit, Caitlin, there's so much runoff from this circuit redesign from 2005 that you are really having to focus on, well, how far over to the left do I need to look to find my marker?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to find your marker here sometimes, especially since a lot of these corners are actually tightening radius corners, which are a driver's worst nightmare. The corner gets tighter as you go along, and that's the sort of corner that seems to invite lockups and drivers making errors. You have to have your braking bias in exactly the right place, and especially in that final sector, it's almost sadistic in the way that the track's been designed. Now look at Paul O'Regan, he's under attack from Alex Hagland. Hagland goes to the inside, and a little bit late, O'Regan sees him coming. Can Connor Pooler follow him through? These two have been swapping places for the entire race so far, along with Florian Kamau, who's just up the road, just having a little bit of fun between themselves now, and it's Hagland who comes out ahead on this particular lap.
Yeah, track conditions right now worth keeping in mind. We are in sim time, about 10 past 1 coming up to, as through goes Connor Pooler down the inside. They will drag race to Dunlop, but I think it's going to be Connor Pooler on the outside who's there. Track temperature starting to increase a little bit, 25 Celsius out there as things stands. A little look to the inside's not there, but I think what's really telling, Caitlin, it's a very cold track, which means these drivers can go and be aggressive.
They can indeed. Of course, there is such a thing as too cold on these racetracks, but right now they're in the optimum window. It's the best sort of weather for fast lap times, and it's the best for your tyres as well. They're not going to be overheating or melting into the ground, so they'll all be having a bit more fun out there than they would otherwise be. We're on board with Jacob Reed. Oh, getting closer. Sorry, yes, we were on board with Jacob Reed, getting closer to the back of Anthony Catt. Walter Lux is directly behind them, as you saw the graphic on the screen, and I'm surprised none of them were able to get a move done down the straight that time. It looked as if Lux would at least be able to get alongside Jacob Reed, but was a little too far back, and of course Reed still getting that DRS from Anthony Catt, as we said earlier. Ooh. And there's Edward Apari-Ari making a relatively early stop on the medium tyres, potentially a two-stop strategy unless he goes onto the hards.
No, I think this is one stop soft. I think this is going to be a very bold and brave call by Edward Apari-Ari. He is going on to the soft compound tyre, so he will have to nurse those tyres home. 42 laps from here. It's an early call, but if he gets a good enough undercut here as he comes into the pits, he'll be looking at, well, can I pull the 7, 8, 9 seconds that I need when you've got Pooler, O'Regan and Hagland as the drivers you're trying to stay with up in front. Lux, again out of Panasonic, is hoping for something of a drive that's going to get him forward. But I think Walter Lux is going to need to be one of those drivers who pits in earlier and tries to undercut on strategy. He's got the setup that alludes itself to that, but he can't find a move. Again in the mirrors, tries Jacob Reed, but Anthony Catt's been there and done that. He doesn't want to move, not an inch.
Yeah, and Walter Lux got worryingly close in the braking zone as well. Seemed so transfixed on what Catt was doing that he wasn't focusing on Jacob Reed directly ahead of him, but all was okay. And he actually got closer to Jacob as a result. Now we head through the middle part of the circuit. Commiserations to Kent Nielsen, who's just dropped into the YouTube chat, unfortunately retired from this race earlier on. And yeah, I'd like to apologise, Kent, because when we initially saw the incident, I said that Dan Piazza was the innocent victim, and of course he was, but you were both innocent victims because looking back at it now, there was definitely netcode there. 1.5 metre netcode, says Kent Nielsen, and I think that's very unfortunate considering the circumstances. But yeah, there's plenty more time to go in this race for the likes of Edward Apari-Ari. Ken Nielsen says, little too early for stops. Ideal will be lap 30, which comes up in 3 laps time.
Well, it might not be ideal, but it's something, as we saw Conor Pooler here, and we see as the race leaders dived in here, Jordan Gronkowski. This is a big decision then, so he will move on to the medium compound tyre, that we expect, but this is going to send a chain reaction through. Now, Anthony Catt will probably need to cover this move off. Jacob Reed doesn't necessarily have to at this point, because he'll get great soft tyres to work with at the end of this stint, so he's going to be certainly working with this. So too Volta Lux. Gronk out and away, a massive puff of smoke on his 4.1 second pit stop, and away he goes. And crucially for Gronk, he's got clean air.
Yeah, but I tell you what, that's an earlier pit stop than I was expecting from the race leader. I think I was commenting on this in the last race as well, where you rarely see the leader pit first in the top 10, but Jordan Gronkowski there obviously saw a gap on his delta and was able to come out in clean air. He's in 11th position, but that's not representative, of course, and he'll be hoping that he doesn't catch anyone while this stint is going along. I'm looking at the track map, actually. He has got a decent amount of time to the likes of Paul O'Regan in front of him. He should, I mean, it could take him maybe 5 laps to catch that, so it should be okay. And Anthony Catt comes into the pits as well on those softs, so responds to Jordan Gronkowski. Jacob Reed will briefly take the lead of the race until he makes his pit stop later on. But the important thing now is that Reed doesn't have the DRS from Anthony Catt, and he might be a little more vulnerable to Lux as a result, as Eduardo Radice also pits.
Bold call by Eduardo Radice, then he's going to jump in at the same time as Anthony Catt. They'll do alternative strategies. One's going to go on to softs, one's going to go on to mediums as they make their stops. 3.7 it looks like there from Eduardo Radice as it goes 4.3 and 4.2 respectively as they leave the pit. But Jacob Reed here with the race lead. Volta Lux will now look to chase. Alex Hagland getting himself still involved right now in this middle. This battle has not ceased over the course of this race so far. Pooler and Hagland, and now Paul O'Regan getting into the mix as well. We've got some wonderful racing going on, and all this happening right in front of car number 4, Jordan Gronkowski, your net race leader.
And if you needed any more evidence that one stops with a strategy to be on, drivers on mediums and softs pitting on the same lap is very telling of that. It shows you that because we're getting near to the halfway point, the drivers are pitting now rather than when their tyres are actually going off. Now we're on board with Walter Lux, and this is the first time he's had DRS since Anthony Catt has pitted, and I think Jacob Reed's going to be vulnerable here. Lux is going to go for the move. He goes to the right-hand side, and this, remember, is for the lead of the race, considering the pit stops we've just seen. Up the inside goes Lux. He goes through. Meanwhile, Mario Bodlos is in the pits, but we have a new race leader in Walter Lux.
We absolutely do, and Lux has been really good as he has a massive wiggle through Coca-Cola curve. He's been awesome when it's come to this phase of the circuit as he goes by. Pooler in, Hagland in as well. He's going to dive and make sure that stop happens. So Bodlos here has got himself a long old wait as he goes through. 4.3 seconds. We'll see where he comes out. He'll be behind Anthony Catt, and he'll be behind by a fair margin as well by the time he's on the power and down through the TGR corner. Radice pretty much trying to bridge that divide. Everyone will be worried about the Italian Radice in the second half of this race, but Jacob Reed right now will realise that he's got to really hold on to Volta Lux through this section of track. This is where he's good, but he'll bring all that time back along this long front stretch to try and get himself into a place where he can attack. So we'll take a look at when these drivers will make that call. I think they're going for something more traditional here in terms of their stop. They're looking to build that gap back on the soft tyres, but look at the difference. 3:30 on the straight. It's 40 k's an hour, and Jacob Reed leaves Volta Lux just waiting.
Great stuff. I think that means that every time we go down the straight, they're going to swap positions now, and because they're not holding each other up in the corners, this is actually helping them in the long run. Florian Kammerer now comes into the pits as well. Last time out, he won his first Grand Prix in this series. A little look from Walter Lux through the middle section of the course, but not really an overtaking opportunity on Reed. I think he's just letting him know that he's there. I think we've had 4 different leaders in this race so far. Jacob Reed and Walter Lux have both led a lap. Lux just led that last lap. And then, of course, you've had the likes of Jordan Gronkowski and Anthony Cat. Cat led it very briefly during the pit window. And side by side a little bit further back, this is Edward Apari-Ari and Frank, what's his name? What's his surname? Frankie Francica, making, I think, his debut in this series. As out of the pits comes Paulo Reagan just beside them.
Well, Francica, I think, had one appearance so far this season. It wasn't much of one out there. It actually was a non-finish that he had at Barcelona, his home race. So it's nice to see him back. But once more, your two leaders as they cross the line. Jacob Reed, a 19.6 with the overtake. Lux looking to the inside on a 20.3. Can't find it. Now, Gronk was about 0.3 quicker on that last lap on the fresher medium compound tyres. Eduardo Radice with the purple check mark now doing 1:18.7, so he's 0.6 of a second a lap quicker than Jordan Gronkowski and 14 seconds behind him. At this moment, Mario Bodlosh currently the biggest threat to Gronk as things stands, but you look at the difference makers here. They've lost 1.4, 1.5 seconds over the last 3 laps to Jordan Gronkowski, and if they're not careful, as Bodlosh sets the fast lap of the race, these drivers will fall behind these sorts right now, as Mario Bodlosh, with that fastest lap, looks to eye overtaking Anthony Cat on the medium tyres. An important battleground moment here in the context of this race for Mario, who's so good early in the stints.
And there's Florian Kammer going past Lyle Pina, who is yet to stop, and looks like Connor Pooler is lining him up as well. But yeah, big lap from Mario Bodlos. That was his first lap under 1:19, and he absolutely smashed that, going 1:18.366. Of course, fastest lap at the end of the race, and a big dive from Pooler goes to the inside. As into the pits comes Walter Lutz from second. Fastest lap at the end of the race will get an extra point in the SimSpeed Championship. And of course, it also means that you're going fast on the road, and so you will be gaining time on your opponents, obviously. So Mario Bodlos in a good place. Walter Lux is in the pits, putting George van Rensburg up into second position, and he'll be passed now by Gronkowski, Cat, etc.
Well, we'll see as he will come in and make his stop. Anthony Cat trying to hold back Mario Bodlosh for position, but I think resistance will be futile in this stage because Mario Bodlosh goes flying by. And remember, Bodlosh was behind, so too was Anthony Cat, and Walter Lux is going to come out on the back of this group, and he needs a big outlap here to go and make the pace happen because Jacob Reed will need to dive into the pits sometime soon, you would imagine, at this point. So this is a really, really big phase as these drivers try and get what they can out of it. So Lux comes out net 4th at this moment, could be net 5th, but it does depend on car 1 deciding whether he wants to dive down into the pits and make that all-important pit stop with Mario Bodlos with the purple checkmark. Reed has stayed out for another lap, so too at the moment is George van Rensburg at this stage of the race, but we are in for a real treat as George van Rensburg now will decide on lap 33 to dive in on what is a single track pit lane, and I think that's been really crucial to keep in mind. Drivers are looking to try and cover everybody else out there with what they've got in strategy land.
Yeah, into the pits there, George van Rensburg. And the most important thing for Jacob Reed will be whether or not he comes out ahead of Mario Bodlos, who's been putting in those laps, putting in that time. There goes Jordan Gronkowski. I don't think he's going to come out anywhere near Jordan Gronkowski necessarily, but will he come out ahead of Mario Bodlos and be the fastest driver, the top driver, on those soft tyres? Bodlos becomes the first driver to set a lap under 1:18. It's a 1:17.948. making himself more likely to take that fastest lap bonus point at the end of the day. And George van Rensburg comes out, and what's up?
That was Lyle Pienaar getting very close to the line there. He had to lock up the front to not get caught speeding through the gun, so he's done very well. But I tell you the big difference there, Caitlin, 1.9 seconds from Bodlos to Jacob Reed on that last lap. That was huge. Reed is staying out again, and I think he's costing himself the race at this point. And you can see there, massive lock-up from Lyle Pienaar to try and get that slow to not get a speeding penalty.
As for costing himself the race, remember never to count out Jacob Reed, especially since you very much can overtake at this track, and he has done several times.
Whoa!
He would, big twitch there from Walter Lux, just about gets away with it, and keeps it on the road, and follows Anthony Cat. I think he used up one of Cat's 9 lives there to save that one. and we're having a look at the onboard replay. And there's the twitch, and he just about gets away without overcorrecting and steering off the road.
It's full opposite lock there, which has been able to bring that into play. So that was a mega save by Volta Lux out there. Now keep an eye on Bodlosh versus Gronk's gap at the moment, because on that last lap it was another 9/10 of a second that was taken away. Jordan Gronkowski's only clear at the moment by 6.5 seconds here to Mario Bodlosh, the Austrian, in third place right now on the road. Speaking of which, as he blinks on through, that would be a little bit of a cause for concern, but down the inside of the Adbank corner, where do you see that? But remember, he's got no top end speed, and as such, Cat's going to come straight back down the hill through 300. Nowhere for Volta Lux to go. He is being stymied, and watch out in the distance. That is Eduardo Radice behind them.
To be honest, and Jacob Reed's in. So Jacob Reed in from the lead of the race. Now this is very important as to where he will come out in relation to the likes of Mario Bodlos, and of course the fight that we're on board with right now with Lux versus Cat. We're going into split screen territory. This is good stuff from our cameraman Jay Kennedy, where you will see the battle between Cat and Lux on the top screen. They look like they might be about to change positions, and they're being chased hard by Eduardo Radice now. And you can see on the bottom screen Jacob Reed being lifted up by his invisible pit crew, who plop him back down and send him out. And he's going to come out just ahead, just side by side with this position. He drops behind. He drops behind even the likes of Eduardo Radice, who was way worse affected at the start of the race by his terrible qualifying. So Reed has a lot of work to do now, not just to catch up to the leaders, but of course to overtake the cars between them.
This is going to be a big 32 laps here from Jacob Reed. If he wants to try and close this down and win this race, he has got to go through the entire gauntlet. And right now it starts with Radice, with Cat, and with Volta Lux, who is desperately trying to scamper away at this phase of the race, knowing first and foremost that Anthony Cat is on medium tyres and should be comfortable for both Eduardo Radice and Jacob Reed to pass. So that's the first port of call, with Lux just absolutely flying away with his high downforce set. You get the sense right now that Radice has got himself lined up, but you look at that gap, it's exactly 6 seconds, and Jordan Gronkowski knows he was going to need a few friends to drop that gap down, and he is doing what he needs to at this moment. 5.5 seconds now along the stretch. Here goes Radice, and I think you're going to have to let that one go here, Mr. Cat. He can't do anything about that one. There goes one. Will it be two with Jacob Reed down the inside? No, he gets bottled up.
Okay, gets bottled up behind Anthony Cat, and now gets to run down the second DRS straight. In my personal opinion, the second DRS zone should probably be the little sweeper heading down towards the chicane. I think that would be a wonderful place to put it, but we do have one heading out of turn one, which allows you to carry the speed through and undercut the driver who you're fighting with. This is the straight I'm talking about. It's not entirely straight, but then again, neither is the run between turns 2 and 3. And a little look now for Jacob Reed going up the inside and getting through on the medium-tired Anthony Cat. The other driver on medium tyres, of course, is Jordan Gronkowski, who has 5 seconds advantage over Mario Bodlos at the top of the order. That's come down slightly. Meanwhile, Walter Lux has the fastest lap of the race now, and he'll need to use up all of that speed to get away from the charging Radice and Reed behind him.
Well, this is going to be an interesting thing for Cat and Gronk. They're going to have to rely on those soft tyres hitting a cliff out there here today, hitting too much wear and running out of tyre life to use. That's what's going to be in the back of the mind. If I can hold off a pass here or a pass there, it's about gaining that back by the end of the race. 30 laps to go, and it looks like a tall order at the rate that Mario Bodlos is closing down Jordan Gronkowski here for this one to be anything other than Mario Bodlos's race to lose at this point. But there is still going to be a case to be made that the longer that this race goes on, the more likely the tyres are going to fall back into the favour of the medium runners.
So, Eduardo Radice there, who was one of the medium runners earlier on, switched onto the soft tyres and really benefited from it. Remember, he qualified down in 16th position and he's currently running in 4th place. I wasn't entirely impressed by his opening stages because he didn't get through the back markers as quickly as I thought he would. He was only up into 9th before his pit stop. but I think his the timing of the stop was very, very good. Allowed him to jump several runners, and he's been running very well since then. Clearly likes those soft tyres. And now they head out onto the straight once again. I think he'll just about get DRS from Walter Lux. And of course Reed will get DRS from behind him. He doesn't get DRS from Lux. Okay, well, he's a little vulnerable then. He'll still be getting a distant slipstream. But you can see Reed getting even closer to him. Oh, and takes a little look. That would have been speculative. Okay, well, doesn't go for a lunge, backs out of it. And I think if he had, it would have ended in tears. So I'm glad that there wasn't any contact there.
Well, Jacob Reed's got a rocket ship when he's got DRS available to him and the full battery to deploy. So that's going to be worth keeping in mind as they go through. Look at that. Full bore on the straight, trying to chase on the sim speed replay, and he tries to close, thinks about going to the inside, very late, using a lot of engine braking down there in the fourth gear to make sure he can get that car slowed right down. Wide goes Radice though, through the Dunlop corner, and that's going to open up the door through this section, because he's not going to get DRS for a second lap, because Walter Lux is so good through this section of circuit, through the Toyota GR Supra corner, and then heading over, of course, the Panasonic, the final corner out on circuit and onto that front stretch once again. Eduardo Radice, remember, was one of the earliest takers onto the soft compound tyre, so that's going to mean that he's going to be struggling late on in this one. If there are any signs that these drivers are struggling on their pace overall, Radice is going to be your canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, definitely, but look at this. We've got Jacob Reed coming through on the straight, gets past him, and does that as they reach the curb on the left-hand side, and he goes through into fourth position now, and his next target will be Walter Lux just up ahead of him. Jacob Reed would not settle for fourth position, even though it would be comfortable championship-wise. And I tell you what, we just saw a glimpse of the leader, Jordan Gronkowski, but you can see visually that the gap between himself and Mario Bodlos has come down. My live timing screen is saying that Bodlos will be in striking distance within 5 laps. Now that's not always to be trusted, because lap times really, it never takes into account the differing circumstances. So Gronkowski, I think, will start to respond now and should fend him off for a little bit longer. But I think that Bodlos is definitely gaining, and Gronkowski definitely has his hands full to keep the lead, as we take a look at Lyle Pina having a spin onto the final corner, just about. Good save.
It's a very good save, because that barrier does jut out there at the final corner of Panasonic, and you can very easily find yourself in a world of hurt there. But ultimately now, that gap is creeping down, but this time it's only 0.2 of a second. So the difference maker here being that Jordan Gronkowski can keep a similar pace as breezing by goes Jacob Reed with a 17.6 fastest lap as well, and a SimSpeed Championship point, which could ill afford for Jordan Gronkowski to be in that driver's hands. The Worcesterman in third position right now, so that's going to be something to keep in mind. But Jordan Gronkowski can keep the same pace as the laps he was doing when he started his stint. Already, Mario Bodlos is about a second slower than what he's done at the moment, and that's going to be concerning when Jacob Reed is only 2.5 seconds adrift.
Indeed, the gap now down to 2.5 seconds for the lead. It's come down by another half a second since last time I read it out. And you're looking at third and fourth. They are also gaining on Gronkowski and even Bodlos at this point in time, with the last lap that Jacob Reed set. All of these drivers and cars are in the... Well, actually, Jacob Reed was the only one in the 117s on the last lap. All of them have been in the 117s. But Bodlos only doing 118s now. Jordan Gronkowski 119.2. So the top 4 or 5 really accordioning together, if that is a word. I've just made it one. And we're looking now at Jacob Reed, who has broken the DRS, nearly broken the DRS from Walter Lux behind. Should be pretty comfortable, actually, getting away from Walter Lux at this point in time. And his last lap time was a 117.8, so just over 1/10 of a second slower than his absolute best, but over a second faster than Bodlos, who himself was 0.7 faster than Gronkowski. This is impressive stuff.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Jacob Reed's time, of course, increased by the fact he had DRS on the front stretch. He didn't this time round, so expect that time to fall back by anywhere between half a second and a second. But look at this, your top 5 in this race are split by 5.3 seconds. If the iRacing Grand Tour is not there for you, then I tell you what, it is if you want to watch it, because this is closing right up at the pointy end. A second and a half now for Mario Bodlos if he wants to get there, but Gronk able to just pull that gap up a little bit to 1.7. It's very much the same as pulling your trousers up. He's very much a case of fastening a belt and saying, right, brace.
Indeed, and brace yourselves for a tense finish to this race. At this point in time, I would actually say that strategically the best driver might be Jacob Reed. You can see how close he's got. It's a train of 5 cars now for the lead of the race, basically, when just a few laps ago there was 7 seconds between Gronkowski and Bodlos. And even then, Bodlos couldn't see Reed in his mirrors, and it has really closed up now with 25 laps to go. Surely that is too long for Jordan Gronkowski to hold on to this one, as Conor Paula goes side by side with Florian Kammerer and gets through into 8th position. This reminds me of the very first race of the championship back at the Nürburgring, where Darren Parker led the race by over 10 seconds before his pit stop, and I said surely he's got this one in the bag. And in the end, I think he came home 3rd, or he might have not even got a podium in the end, because that is how the races swing when you bolt on a new set of tyres.
There is such a huge difference maker, and now they're all within range of each other right now, the exception of Eduardo Radice at this moment, who's a second and a half back of Volta Lux. They run through the left-hander, and at 1.1 seconds, it's agonising for Mario Bodlos. He's got to get the marker, but I don't think he's going to manage it here, and he doesn't have it, so now Jacob Reed is going to be set to try and move up here into P2. The Austrian's going to have to look behind Jacob Reed at full bore on the front stretch, going on to lap 44, moving over to the inside, taking second position away. My eyes are set on you, Jordan Gronkowski.
And he's nearly, and I think he is within DRS range immediately. This is very impressive stuff from Jacob Reed, heading up towards the Coca-Cola curve. I tell you what, Jacob Reed is going to be very difficult to stop from now on. Remember, he came out 6th after his pit stop. He's had to fight through the order since then. All of those moves have been done on the track, as Alex Hagland just passes Paul O'Regan for 10th place. But yes, Jacob Reed here is going to be very difficult to hold back, and should, I think, get past Jordan Gronkowski this lap as they get to the start-finish line.
Well, this is going to be huge, because we're talking about tyre life. Gronkowski is trying to hold as many laps as he can in front of Jacob Reed, because he knows that when the tyres will fall away off of the soft runners, he'll have a great chance to get back and say, this is what I can do in this race when the tyres go back in his favour. It will happen at some point. The question is when. 0.4 of a second, and now he needs a little bit of a prayer if he wants to hold the lead on the end of this lap. Jacob Reed, who had a horrible start, has spent most of his race in the mid-pack, suddenly bolts a set of softs on and leads, and psychologically, that's a huge blow at this stage of the championship. Here goes Mario Bodlos. He might make it too for your mistakes, and he does.
Wow, so Jordan Gronkowski loses 2 places in one straight from the lead of the race. Reed goes through, Bodlos goes through, and I tell you what, you mentioned psychology there with Jacob Reed, and I think you're absolutely right. For him, after the last race, it's important for him to say, yeah, I'm still the old Jacob Reed. I may have crashed out once, but it will not happen again. I will go back to winning ways. And if he wins this one, then I think he would have proven everyone who even slightly doubted him. Not that many people would have done, because as I keep saying today, you can never underestimate Jacob Reed. He is the best driver out there so far today, so far this season. And I think now, I mean, it's still too early to say with 23 laps to go, but I think now that this is Jacob Reed's race to lose.
Well, if anybody can make a pass now in terms of having similar setup characteristics, it's Volta Lux on Jordan Gronkowski. Gronk's just got to hold the DRS in front, and he's got a really good chance of making sure that he still doesn't lose out on this place. He's got DRS full bore. Volta Lux moving over. Oh, they both go right over to the pit wall. Goes Volta Lux. It's a big defence by Jordan Gronkowski, but he will have to yield, will the Scotsman. And just like that, it is 2 Austrians on the podium as things stands. Lux now up into 3rd position with Bodlos in 2nd. That was a big move, and one where Jordan Gronkowski has to, at some point in this race, and he's doing it now, pay back the Pied Piper.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised the game let Walter Lux do that, actually, pass him off the road, because he was over the white lines on the right-hand side of the road, but he made the move stick, and that was a very aggressive bit of defence from Gronkowski. He knew he needed to do that, because, of course, Walter Lux has the advantage. He was on the front foot, and there was no holding him back if he didn't do something slightly dramatic. We're on board with Gronkowski now, who will continue to drop back, and with the speed that Eduardo Radice is currently doing, Gronkowski will not finish even in 4th position.
Well, Mario Bodlos here under a lot of threat as we are on board with Jordan Gronkowski at this moment. He's not fully gone, he's not fully detached then from this group. He is still holding on to it with Mario Bodlos now, the driver under threat. Walter Lux looking at 2nd position as a real distinct possibility here along this straight, but look, he's stuck at 3:09 in a straight line. Bodlos without DRS hits 3:13 on the straight in kilometres an hour. So if you're 4Ks down when you've got full DRS and battery, that's huge. We'll take a look at this move then on the straight and how aggressive he had to be all the way over to the inside, over the red and white lines, but crucially did not make the move, so to speak there, Caitlin, until he was back on the racing circuit.
That's true. I still don't think that would have stood in real life, but this is different, of course. They're racing under... well, it's equal rules because it's being adjudicated by the game itself, as Alex Hagland there goes past Paul O'Regan into Coca-Cola Curve, up into that 10th position. And now we're looking at Walter Lux, who is in 3rd position on the back of Mario Bodlos, who led earlier on. Bodlos, the 3rd seeded driver versus the 5th seeded driver here, and goes wide. He runs wide into the penultimate corner of the lap. Should get it back on into the final corner, but this will give Lux and Gronkowski a good run down the straight. He sees the rear wing and will open the DRS. He'll have the slipstream and he'll have some deployment to use. And here we go, this will be a relatively easy move.
I'm not so sure. He's really having to fight. Finally, there's some yield from Mario Bodlos about halfway along, and Walter Lux gets it, and he needed to because they cost them each other about half a second there with that mistake at the GR Supra corner. So if Walter Lux has any eyes of grandeur in this one to rob Jacob Reed of a race victory here today at Fuji, now will be the time that he's got to go. He's not had a win, has Walter Lux, in 2 years, so he is really hoping that he can pick up his maiden the same way that Florian Kammeyer did last time out at Aragon.
Indeed, we'll keep watching the gap. It's come out to 2 seconds now, so Jacob Reed continues to extend his lead. Like I said, it's his to lose at this point in time, but remember, last time out he did lose it by crashing out of the race when he was already on the back foot. The fastest lap of the race is currently held by Jacob Reed. He was 0.3 of a second faster than Lux on that last lap. John Gronkowski actually set a personal best lap of the race, despite being slower still than the race leader, but still going relatively well in that 4th position, holding on for dear life, because if he loses the DRS, then Eduardo Radice will be past him in a flash. Down the straight we go, 20 laps to go in this 67 lap race, so we're over 2/3 of the way in now, and still a big chain of cars between 2nd and 5th positions.
Well, dare I say it, it is not over for Jordan Gronkowski just yet. He is keeping steady in this group. He doesn't have to overextend. It's 4v1 at this point, but that gap now out to nearly 3 seconds here at the front of this field. So this is a big moment in the context of this race. Can Jacob Reed keep away these 4 drivers, Lux and Bodlos, the Austrians, Jordan Gronkowski, his main championship rival, and Eduardo Radice, who has spent so much time on this podium this season, but yet to find a victory, a statement, and from 16th it might be the biggest statement if he can manage it.
Indeed, up the hill goes Jordan Gronkowski, the Scotsman who has raced Formula Ford cars in real life, and who has had some success in this championship already with a few wins. Earlier on this year was the closest driver to taking wins off of Jacob Reed, and did take a few before Reed started that incredible winning streak. Back onto the start-finish straight they go. He's got Radice for company. These two have been racing all year long for those positions. Usually a little higher up. Usually they're going for first and
Bodlosh.
second, or second and third. And this is Radice going for fourth, but also Mario Bodlosh goes for Walter Lux for second, and Bodlosh gets it. He's got up to second once again.
He has, so that's a great move by Mario Bodlosh, and now he's got to really press forward here on his margin and his advantage. This is a big moment in the race. Lux is so good in this phase. He's got the downforce to attack, and Eduardo Radice moving up into fourth position may have his eyes set on a podium, and Radice has got a car that definitely works well in a straight line. But remember, Radice has some very old tyres there by context compared to those around, so Radice is hoping that he can use that potentially to his advantage. He's got to be a little bit choice though, and he's got to find places where he can save the tyres out there. Very difficult to save the tyres as well, Caitlin, when you're on a car that wants to scrub those tyres up as much as possible, does not like turning, and will have a bucket of understeer up through these off-camber corners.
Yep, like I said, these corners off camber and tightening radius, very, very difficult, especially when your tyres aren't playing ball. I mentioned in the last broadcast that I did a Group C race here recently, and I made the mistake of starting on wet tyres on a very dry track, and they did not handle well in that section whatsoever. Now watch Walter Lux as he slipstreams his way closer to Mario Bodlosh, and will go back to second now on the inside, so just one lap after Bodlosh overtook him. Walter Lux does a Bodlosh on Bodlosh, and a little puff of smoke, and he gets it done, and goes back through into that second position.
Yep, so he's certainly making progress. Keep an eye out as well on Anthony Katz's progress too, because Connor Pooler and Florian Kammeyer might have something to say at about 5 seconds back. They might try and get through as well. And if Paul O'Regan, for example, can pass Kammeyer and Pooler late on in this race, he'll move into the top 10 of the SimSpeed Championship, which will be huge for him to move up ahead of Jorge Martinez in that sense. But on the brakes into the Dunlop corner once again. Eduardo Radice now the driver who's looking to try and seem like he is the more aggressive out there. Mario Bodlosh letting that gap extend a bit to Walter Lux, and Radice is really hoping that he can run up through the gears. He knows that Walter Lux is his main competitor for that third place in the championship, and as things stand here, with Lux in second, with Radice in fourth, that would be a 6-point championship swing.
So back onto the straight we go once again. Who will pass who this time around? We're pretty much used to there being an overtake every single lap down here, just because of how fast the straight is. Radice now on Bodlosh goes to the right-hand side. He might get both, you know. He's very close to the back of Lux, but has to back out of it. No Lux there, sorry. Anyway, Walter Lux continues on in second position. Eduardo Radice is up to third now, just 2 laps after passing Jordan Gronkowski.
But look at the gap extend, because they're just battling amongst each other. They can't get any cohesion in this group. And Jacob Reed, who is loving this, it was 3.3 at the line. He has got everything sorted at this moment in time, and you start looking at what Walter Lux has got to do. It might just be that Radice has got to bring those guys along with if he wants to chase and bring this gap back down again. Gronk, remember, is waiting for those tyres to fall off. 18.9 from him over that last run, 18.8 from Jacob Reed, so only a tenth's difference over the course of that last lap. Gronk's got to run his way through the gauntlet, but again here, Caitlin, doesn't have the setup that is going to allow him the opportunity to make that move. We'll see here on the straight how difficult of a time he's going to have with Mario Bodlosh. He needs these drivers to split apart by a second here and there and effectively pick them off one at a time.
Yeah, if you end up with 2 equal setups, one of them good in the corners and one of them on the straights, then you definitely go for the straight line one, as Bodlosh takes a look at Radice, who was all over the back of Lux, heading into the braking zone. But you always go for the straight line one simply because that's where the overtakes happen. So if you have the car that's just as quick but only corners well, and Florian Kammeyer there going through into 8th position on Connor Pooler, good move made stick, and that's about the 5th time those two have overtaken each other in this race. But yeah, if you have the straight line one, then you will be able to pass people. If you have the corner one, you'll be just as quick, but it won't matter because you'll be held up and you'll still lose the race. So that is why the straights are the most important section of the course, especially at a track like Fuji Speedway here, because well, clues in the name, speed. It's very, very fast. It's a very long straight, one of the longest on the calendar, and the DRS zone encompasses most of that straight as well, allowing for almost easy overtaking maneuvers if you can get yourself behind a driver with the DRS wide open on the back of your car.
Well, that's going to be the key, and you just got to keep an eye out as you hit the straight. Who's got what? Jacob Reed, a 19.3 on that last lap, dropped 0.4 to Volta Lux, so that gap might just start to be going the other way. He's used some tyre, and that's Connor Pooler off the road. We don't often see that. He falls back now to 11th position, and he's just had a moment on his own, coming out of the GR Supra corner too early on the power, and the back snapped.
Yeah, I noticed he lost 2 positions, and we're about to see why. So he's just behind Florian Kammer and possibly distracted for a second. Overcooks it. Another decent save, very similar of the one that Lyle Pina had earlier in the day, but that'll cost him time and tyre life as a result of that. And he's outside of the top 10 now, so would not score SimSpeed Championship points if it was to finish this way. Meanwhile, John Gronkowski is still holding on to Bodlosh, Radice, etc. And he knows that those medium tyres, okay, they may not have done him well at the start of this stint, but if the soft tyres start to go off towards the end, then Gronkowski could still stand a chance of potentially even a podium position. I noticed Kent Nielsen said the soft tyres will be absolutely fine, but some of these drivers, especially Eduardo Radice, did pit quite early, forcing them to do quite long stints on those soft tyres, so Gronkowski still has a chance as we head down the straight once again. I think the closest driver here, we got Bodlosh with a little glance at Eduardo Radice, just showing himself to the mirrors, trying to unsettle his rival. And Radice rounds the corner, still in 3rd place.
Yeah, so you really get a look at these drivers. 2/10 that last lap from Volta Lux to take off of Jacob Reed. This is the big phase of the race, because right now you've either got it or you don't, and you're trying to pull back gap and pull back time, and this is the transit phase. They are looking to try and pull a gap back down. No driver really in a close enough position to make a move on another, so what they are doing is they're relying purely on their pace to pull themselves back into range. This is all about endgame, and I think that's going to be really key to keep in mind as they go over towards the end of this one. Keep an eye out as well on Florian Kammeyer here. He's got about a 1.1 second gap over Paul O'Regan, who, remember, would love that 8th place because that will move him inside the top 10 of the SimSpeed Championship. So he needs 1 place to make that move, to gain that place on the driver. 5th overall in the standings right now after his win last time out at Aragon.
I think I saw Bodlosh have a big twitch there. He can't afford... Oh, he has lost DRS from Radice. Look, he doesn't have the DRS open on the back of the car. So a mistake there from Mario Bodlosh, which is going to put him very vulnerable to Gronkowski, who dummies him into the corner. Looked to the outside, went to the inside, goes back through into 4th position now in the late stages of the race. 12 laps to go in this one. Look at Bodlosh coming back to him on the outside. He tries to hold it. Oh, he runs wide. He runs a little too wide. That would have been the move of the day if he'd made it stick, if he'd kept it on the inside with this long right-hander. And we're going to see a replay now, a slow motion replay of that big twitch that I just saw Mario Bodlosh suffer, which cost him the DRS from Radice.
Yeah, you can see very early on the power, having to gather it back up again. And that is a very minute mistake in the grand context, but it's all it needs, because now suddenly these two are 2 seconds off the back of Eduardo Radice, and they could have ill-afforded that. So Gronk's going to have to get his hurry-up going and now use some of that medium tyre to try not only pull on forward, but keep Mario Bodlosh at bay. But we know that Mario absolutely eats front tyres for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and that's why he's going to be struggling at this phase of the race, because Mario cannot conserve the tyres.
So, onto the straight once again. What's that, sorry, Jake?
Well, it's Volta Lux, look at this, he's 0.4 of a second quicker. That gap now down to 2.6 at the line.
Yeah, so 0.4 of a second quicker than Reed, importantly, and he is not completely dropped away from him. Now, is Reed just conserving that time, that tyre life? Is he just holding his pace? As you see Anthony Capp passing, Paul O'Regan passing Florian Kammeyer now up into 8th position. So is it just Reed being conservative, or will Walter Lux challenge him in the latter stages? If he does, then Eduardo Radice still has a chance. He's still with Walter Lux, despite having older tyres doesn't necessarily matter if you can use the DRS and the slipstream to keep up with the car in front of you. Here's Jordan Gronkowski running in 4th position. Still has a chance of a podium in the latter stages. And there, once again, is Walter Lux. Oh, I think I visibly saw it come down there. I think Reed was... Oh, and a spin! Who's that? And it's Lux! Lux spun it from 2nd! Oh, no! Well, this is shades of the last race, where at Mutterland Aragon, drivers kept spinning out of the lead and out of 2nd position. And Walter Lux, who we were just saying still had a chance of winning the race, has now had a spin and will not win the race, surely. We're about to see a replay of how this happened. It's very similar. And there's the twitch, and around he goes.
Just caught the curb wrong, going through the gear shift. And there is Gronk having to defend. He's now on his podium. It would have cost the entire group a second. Radice now finding himself in that 2nd place. And Gronk trying to do everything he could there to defend on the straight. You can see here, Mario Bodlos was always going to try and find a way through. Hard over to the inside to the pit wall. Covered off the angle just about enough. And was able to stave off that move for the podium. Jordan Gronkowski's trying every trick in the book now to keep himself in range, and suddenly it gets a little bit easier here for Jacob Reed. He wouldn't have known that was Walter Lux's mistake all on his own, but it just goes to show how hard Walter was pushing there, Caitlin, to try and get that move.
Yeah, it really does. Walter Lux just overcooking it there, dropping down to 5th position now, and won't have done the tyres any good that they're running for quite a long time in this race. There's Jacob Reed, who has extended his lead as a result of that, and the question is now, does Radice have the tyre life to reel it in? Does he have the ability to reel it in at this point in time? As the gap this time, we'll see if it comes down at all, and it does. Oh, by half a second. Wow, so Radice is still pushing. Eduardo Radice won 18.6, Jacob Reed won 19.1. Now that's very exciting because it's nearly come down to just 3 seconds once again, as it was before that spin from Walter Lux. So keep your eyes on that as we take a look at Lux now under pressure from George van Rensburg. So not only will he be lucky to get away with that spin, but he'll be lucky to get away with 5th position at the end of this one, having made a mistake from 2nd position.
Well, mistakes definitely are something that drivers always try and take out of their games when they go out and do a race like this. The one thing you've got to keep in mind when you do run into mistakes is you've got to find a way to go through and rectify it. And I think those tyres are cooked for Walter Lux, because go back to Walter Lux for a moment. Who stayed quiet this entire race? George van Rensburg is on the cusp of a top 5. The South African having a stellar run.
Indeed. What's van Rensburg's best result so far this year? Because I think it's about 6th, isn't it?
Well, George van Rensburg has been
Gronkowski just lost third. Gronkowski's off the road. Gronkowski has dropped from 3rd position. He's had a spin at exactly the same point on the road that Walter Lux just had his particular incident. It's going to be exactly the same spin. He gets over the curb and bang into the barriers. So he's hit the wall as well. And that will be the end of Jordan Gronkowski's chance of a podium today.
Well, if it doesn't rain, it pours for Jordan Gronkowski. He has lost the last 2 races to non-finishes when he has been right up there at the pointy end, and you need to construct a 2nd, 3rd of the championship heading towards the end, and Gronkowski's luck from the start of the season has just run thin at the wrong time of this season. He will not have the black and orange mechanical flag, so he can continue to the end of the race somehow, not with ensouth damage there to cause him trouble, but it is enough for him to fall now outside of the top 5. Lux up to 4th now. Van Rensburg up into 5th position with that move, and with Van Rensburg 14th in the championship. Van Rensburg's best performance was last time out at Aragon, a 4th place finish there, and he could be eyeing up back-to-back 4th place finishes if all is said and done. But look out for Eduardo Radice here in this field. He is not done trying to chase down Jacob Reed, not by any stretch of the imagination. Over the line they go. It's down to 3.2, but he needs a little bit of help to chase him down, because the current rate is not good enough. That's Lyle Pinar in front, the last runner at the moment in 14th.
Yeah, Lyle Pinar in 14th position. Jacob Reed about to put a lap on him. And Jacob Reed, I tell you what, this will be his 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be his 11th victory of the season if he pulls it off. And he will absolutely want to go for that, simply because he can wrap up the championship not long from now, probably just a few more races. And then he'll have the last few races of the season as basically an extended victory tour. I'm about to try to work out actually what the earliest he can wrap it up is, because I have a feeling it will be next time out, mathematically. But Jacob Reed at the front of the field has 3.5 seconds over Eduardo Radice. Radice's last lap 0.2 of a second quicker, so it's not the half a second we saw just now. Will back markers help or hinder Jacob Reed? They'll help him on the straight.
He'll get DRS.
He'll get DRS potentially.
No, it's not potentially. He's got it. So he will certainly find himself the opportunity then to say, I've got a little bit extra in a straight line, and it'll be an 18.9 to defend, an 18.9 of Eduardo Radice's. So for Jacob Reed, this is what he's looking for. This is the just enough that he's been praying for. Here goes George van Rensburg to the inside. Lux is much better through the corners, so keep that in mind. How do they attack off the exit? Is there any DRS to come back with? Oh, there is for George van Rensburg. He might go around the outside of turn 3 at Coca-Cola. No, he can't, because the downforce is so good from Volta Lux. George trying to throw all he can at it.
Wow, so George van Rensburg is up into 5th position now at this point in time, as he's got past Jordan Gronkowski after his spin. It's Walter Lutz who he's attacking, and we're watching that on the screen with 6 laps to go in this race. And Walter Lutz, another driver who will be disappointed to have thrown away a good result in this one with his spin earlier on. I'll tell you what, Jordan Gronkowski's got away very luckily to not have worse damage after hitting the barriers. It was a very side-on impact, but the way he hit it, that can very easily twist suspension around. There's Alex Hagland running in 9th, ahead of Florian Kammeyer 10th. Disappointing day for Kammeyer after such jubilation last time out at Aragon. And there is Jacob Reed. I think the gap's come down again, look. I'll update my live timing, see what the gap actually is. Another 10th according to Jay Kennedy. And yes, his last lap was a 10th faster than Jacob Reed, so it has come down again, but he will need to get within DRS range of Reed before the end of the race. If he's to stand a chance of winning, he might need a mistake from Reed.
Well, the issue is that Jacob Reed here has seldom found mistakes out there on circuit. The only time we've really seen it this season was at Long Beach, where he found the barriers on multiple occasions. And on top of that, of course, at Aragon, where he found the curb on the outside and pretty much put it in the barriers after a dour performance, which was compounded with a a speeding penalty where he had to stop in the box. Eduardo Radice, again, on the cusp of another victory that has gone away. I've run out of fingers to count on, Caitlin, how close Eduardo Radice has been all this season. Yeah, just a little bit of good fortune, and Radice is right up there with Jacob Reed fighting for the title.
Indeed. So here we go, down the straight, DRS wide open for Eduardo Radice, getting closer, and that's Lyle Pina who is putting a lap on, so this isn't a move, but that will help Eduardo Radice as he had the DRS on the straight, and he pulls 0.4 out of Jacob Reed on that last lap. Now that's a chunk, and that is notable. And there is Van Rensburg under attack from, well, he's attacking Walter Lux. He's attacking Lux for 4th position. Has he? He's
been attacked. He's lost the place. So George van Rensburg did get through, but ultimately can't gain it back again. So Lux back into 4th position. Fantastic scrapping between them at this stage. But for the moment, Jacob Reed is looking behind and hoping he's got enough of a gap. Remember, it's 7 laps difference on the tyres. Eduardo Radice trying to go from 16th on the grid to win this one, and he is going to need a bit of help here with Jacob Reed just about keeping an arm's reach away here. There'll be 3 laps to go now at the line. You can sense that the Italian is chasing this gap down, where the others around, like Volta Lux and Jordan Gronkowski, have found and made mistakes in this race. But at the moment, it is still just enough at 2.4 seconds. He is leaving just enough of a gap.
But it is important for Jacob Reed that if he wants to wrap up the championship early, he would very much like to win this race. In fact, I've just done some calculations. Jacob Reed would take 18 points out of Jordan Gronkowski if he was to finish where he is because of the extra fastest lap. And Van Rensburg goes back past Walter Lux up into 4th position. What a great day this has been for George Van Rensburg. Whether he finishes 4th or 5th, he'll be happy with that, providing he can hang on to it. But yes, the earliest that Jacob Reed can win this championship is not next time out at Kota, but it is the race after that at Jerez. So just 2 more rounds at this race, at this rate rather, if he continues on this way. That would be 4 rounds early that he would wrap up the championship. I think he's more likely to do it at Interlagos, but I think it will end up going the way of Jacob Reed before the final round, the championship decider, as it would be at Hockenheim, which would allow us to focus on the positions a little bit further down in the SimSpeed Championship. But Jacob Reed doesn't care about that right now. He's only thinking about this particular race and the yellow and green car in his mirrors catching him fast. And across the line they go once again. The last lap saw Radice take 4/10 of a second out of Reed, despite Reed picking up his own pace. And this time around, the gap looks to have stayed relatively just a 1/10, so it stayed a little bit more similar than it usually does.
So for Jacob Reed, he is doing what he needs to, 2.2 seconds. Now with 2 laps to go, Eduardo Radice needs a second a lap if he wants to win this one, but I don't think he's going to have such a luxury out there. We look back at 4th position with George Van Rensburg trying to throw himself in the mix here. He's just got to try and break away, but Lux is so good with his downforce.
It's a bad time for live timing to go down, but hopefully we'll get that booted up before the end of the race. We can still see George Van Rensburg versus Walter Lux running for 4th position in the late stages of the race. And up into the chicane they go. And George Van Rensburg just has a couple more laps to hold onto that one for what I'm sure would be his best result of the season so far. Now I remember why I got the standing page up and immediately closed it. Well done, me. But, and there's Radice. And again, takes some time out of him. Jacob Reed, well, that's an old notification you'll get in there with Reed taking fastest lap of the race. That happened a long time ago. We're on to the last lap of the race. I don't think Radice will get DRS from Reed before the end. So he'll need a mistake from Jacob Reed here.
No, it's close. It'll be close. It will be close. It's 1.6 seconds the gap. So if it can be down at 1 second, it could be enough. Lux trying to go around the outside of George Van Rensburg. He might have a second bite to the cherry here to turn 3, but it's Van Rensburg who's got the DRS, and he is going to be able to hold it. So that is going to be crucial for George at the moment. But that gap, keep an eye out on it. Eduardo Radice needs a real big final sector if he wants to close this down and get enough. Any one mistake from Jacob Reed and Radice will pounce from 16th on the grid in what looked like an impossible display of driving up through the hill. Toyota GR Supra corner awaits, which is the penultimate corner out there. It looks like it's just enough for Jacob Reed. How many more laps needed? Radice with a wiggle. Is there anything on the green lights on the dash? There is not going to be any hope for Radice now. This long straight is one of glory. Back to his best. Jacob Reed is now going to be 96 clear at the top and surely walking towards it. Lux has found his way through, but watch out, because here comes George Van Rensburg looking for his way through. This will be a drag race to the line. Van Rensburg, I think, is going to be a little bit short, and they go all the way to the stripe, and Lux will hold.
Yeah, fantastic job from Walter Lux there to get back through into 4th on the last lap. He'll still be disappointed. Further back, there's a race going on between Kammeyer and Hagland to the line. I think Kammeyer will just hold on to that with the advantage of the slipstream from Anthony Cat up ahead of him. So Jacob Reed has won the race by less than a second it was. So one more lap and Radice would have got DRS. The gap was 0.986. What a tense finish to a very exciting race. Radice was 2nd, then Bodlos 3rd, Lux was 4th, Van Rensburg 5th, Gronkowski 6th, O'Regan 7th, then Kat, Kammeyer and Pina. Here's the move for Walter Lux. Goodness, he did it into the final corner, look. So a change of place for 4th position into the final turn of the race. Now that's the one time that you do want to make a move into that final corner, but he had a big twitch, nearly lost it, and Walter Lux, Van Rensburg nearly came back through. He was less than a quarter of a second behind at the end of the race. So there they go. To continue my rundown, Camo was 9th, Pinar was 10th. Sorry, Camo was... Yeah, my live timing's got a bit messed up there, but there you go. Missing out on points were Alex Hagland, Connor Pula, Eduardo Pari-Ari, Jason Green, and Frankie Francica. And of course, the 3 retirements we had, Kent Nielsen, Dan Piazza, and Victor Awad. And I think I've beaten you to it there, actually, because we're now seeing the official results on the screen, which actually show the lead margin is just over a second. That's not what I saw on live timing, but doesn't matter. Still very close, and I still think one more lap would have given Eduardo Radice the DRS.
Well, Eduardo Radice needed that 1.1 seconds over the line. Just not enough. From 16th on the grid, it was Herculean from Eduardo, but again on the podium, but cannot find the victory. First podium for Mario Bodlos this season. Super he has been in this one. Had led a couple of the laps with Voltalux in 4th. His spin costing him a real shot of victory today. He had every chance of battling and beating Jacob Reed, which could have brought Radice into play. George Van Rensburg just losing out there in that top 5 scrap with Jordan Gronkowski's 6th place finish, one that will hurt him and could pretty much be the sign that the championship is ever closer to the hands of Jacob Reed. Paul O'Regan will move inside the top 10 of the SimSpeed Championship after tonight with that run to 7th place as Anthony Catt faded on the medium tyres going to 8th place. He was only just able to hold off Florian Kamar in 9th, and Alex Hagland on his first start of the season picking up a SimSpeed Championship point for the road in 10th place. No dice for Connor Pula. He'd be on the wrong side of it. He'd be in 11th place after his spin, with Edward Apari-Ari, one of the earliest takers to the pits, finishing off in 12th. Jason Green and Lyle Pinar, the last finishers in this race, with Lyle Pinar 1 lap down. It's an old F4 for Frankie Francica, who could not find the finish with 30 laps to go. Kent Nielsen finding himself a long ways away in 54 laps adrift. And then, of course, the early retirees for Dan Piazza and Victor Awad. Piazza with the netcode with Kent Nielsen, and Victor Awad, of course, up the hill, lap 1 into the barriers. Now, you'll have to wake us up when September ends, in the words of Billy Joel Armstrong, because it will be October 18th that we will be back with you. It's a long wait for the circuit of the Americas, and this is a circuit which is as Marmite or as Vegemite as it ever gets, Caitlin. It's a track that either you love or you hate. It is that amalgamation mashup of all those different great tracks that have been brought together, and I, for one, quite like the racing there.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a great place to go racing, just as Fuji Speedway is. I don't know if it's Marmite. I think I really like the circuit, but it's not one of my, all-time top 10 or whatever, but it's definitely a good one. And I think that the racing here is always exciting. If we see anything like today, then it's going to be another tense finish. And we've had those the last few races here at the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. So join us in just under a month. Goodness me, I'm going to miss this series.
Well, you can only catch it with us here at SimSpeed TV as we walk ever closer to the championship showdown. Definitely not out of the realms of possibility, but it is going to be one of those races that you sit back and look at and go, it could have gone any one of about 10 different ways here today at Fuji. You had to try and stand up and deliver. Jacob Reed's start was the only thing you could really criticise about what he was able to produce today, but he goes and joins back onto, after that one break at Aragon, his winning run again. It starts again at 1 after getting 8 straight wins. But you got to look at Jordan Gronkowski. He's got to use this break to his advantage, because he has had a torrid time over the last 3 rounds, scoring just 8 championship points to the 54 that have been in the back pocket of one Mr. Jacob Reed. It is pretty much stand back and deliver. We will see you in just under a month, because when we're next with you, everything is bigger, including the racing, when we head to Austin, Texas, when we will see you at the Circuit of the Americas.
Okay.
Yes. I'd rather you say.
After typing up my notes as well, I
World of
I was in a
Outlaws
certain
Dirt
mood
Racing
today.
24 will be available September 17th. Pre-order your copy today.
Thank you very much. I aim to please. Yeah, I will see you guys in a month. 4 weeks, I think.
4
It'll
weeks.
have to be 4 weeks, yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Who have you recruited for your cricket season this season?